Hello and welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Today, the state of India's opposition. On one hand, you have the divide in the Congress that is seemingly deepening as a section of the party huddled together last night demanding comprehensive change. On the other hand, you have the rest of the opposition which is trying to figure out what it can do to prepare for the battle of 2024. Remember, the Prime Minister believes that 2024's general elections are a done deal. Is that just psyops, as Prashant Kishore seems to think, or is there some truth to it? Our first guest today, former Union Home Minister and senior Congress leader P Chidambaram, on why his party is imploding and whether Modi versus the rest means advantage BJP. Later, we'll be joined by the RLD's Jayant Chaudhary, who breaks his silence after the UP defeat, where his party was in alliance with the Samajwadi Party. But first, our big focus tonight, with the split wide open in the Congress party, the big question political analysts and others are asking is whether the Gandhis need to quit, should they quit, and will that actually turn around the Congress's fortunes? Well, last night, a group of 18 Congress leaders, a mix of the so-called rebellious G23 and some newcomers, met and pitched for what they called a collective inclusive leadership. Kapil Sibal is the only leader among them who has openly called for the Gandhis to go. Others haven't quite echoed that, and there are some meetings that have happened between Rahul Gandhi today and Bhupinder Hooda, one of the leaders who joined the dissidents in the meeting last night. Now, this G23 meet came just days after a post-mortem by the Congress Working Committee, where the defeat in 5 states was discussed. It clearly came as a shock to the Congress, which had hoped to retain Punjab and had hoped to have some kind of a chance at a comeback in at least Goa and Uttarakhand as well. Well, joining us now is Mr. P Chidambaram, senior Congress leader and former Union Home Minister. Mr. Chidambaram, thank you for joining us. I just wanted your first thoughts on what your colleagues in the party have demanded in terms of an inclusive leadership within the Congress party. It doesn't sound very dramatic at the moment, but how do you see it?
It isn't dramatic, as you said. We are all for sharing responsibility and collective decision making.
Right, but Kapil Sibal, your colleague in the party, has openly called for the Gandhis to step down. He says this is the time. If it's not now, it will never happen. There needs to be accountability. How do you see his comments?
So the Gandhis offered to step down, but it was not accepted by the Congress Working Committee. So what is the option we are left with? The option is to quicken the process of elections to the full-term AICC president. In fact, Mrs. Gandhi suggested that we advance the election timetable. But then again, most members, in fact all members, did not agree to advancing the timetable. So the timetable that has been fixed is August, and I'm sure in August we will elect a full-term president. The question is, between now and August, what do we do? And therefore the statement suggested, and I had a role to play in drafting the last paragraph of that statement, between now and August, all that we can do, and that is the best we can do, and that according to me would be good enough until August, is to take the necessary and comprehensive reforms in the party organization. I believe Mrs. Gandhi is doing that. We'll have to give her a few days to see to what extent the necessary and comprehensive organizational changes are made.
Can I ask you, though, why is there this attempt to shield the Gandhis from responsibility? And why does a section of the party, clearly a large section, at least in the CWC, as you pointed out, believe that the party wouldn't do well without their leadership? It's clearly not doing well with their leadership, as is evident in the last many elections.
Well, I don't know who feels what. All I can reflect is my views and what the statement says. The Gandhis did accept responsibility, like I accepted responsibility for Goa, and other in charges and observers accepted responsibility for other states. Nobody is running away from responsibility. The point I've made then and I make now is responsibility lies with everybody who's in a leadership position, at the block level, at the district level, at the state level, and at the AICC level. It's not enough to say the AICC leadership is responsible, but nobody at the state level and the district level and the block level is responsible. And that is rubbish according to it. Everybody who's in a leadership position at whatever level is indeed responsible.
But Mr. Chidambaram, again, I come to the question of leadership and where the buck stops. Now, if you look at the Congress's decline over the last 8 years or so, in 2014, your party was in power in 9 states in this country. Today, it is in power in only 2 states. It only has 2 chief ministers. Now, why isn't the leadership being held responsible for that? And I ask you this because don't you believe that if the Congress doesn't do something drastic now, and possibly therefore look outside the family fold, when is it going to take that risk? When is it going to do that?
What is drastic? Elections will be held in August. We are in the 3rd week of March. What is drastic according to you?
A non-Gandhi as party president, because that seems to be the sticking point.
For 3 months, are you suggesting that we elect another interim president to replace an interim president? Does that make sense?
So you're convinced that only a Gandhi would get elected to the top job?
Why do you say so? I don't know. I don't know who's going to contest. Anybody can contest and anybody can get elected. And if somebody gets elected with the support of over 1,400 AICC members, he or she is indeed the president of the AICC, for good or bad. If that is what the AICC members want, and the AICC members, I assume, will reflect their party workers.
So may I ask you then about, how honest the introspection is within the party, going beyond the Gandhis for a moment. Now, if you look at those who are supposed to now give Mrs. Gandhi a post-mortem state by state of why the Congress did badly, one of the things the G23 leaders point out is that those who've been given the charge of this post-mortem were people who were actually part of those campaigns in those states. So there's an immediate conflict of interest there. It's not an honest post-mortem. So you have Jairam Ramesh in charge of the post-mortem of Manipur, but he was the state in charge. You have Ajay Makan, who was part of the election team in Punjab, but he's in charge of the post-mortem there. Is this really going to be an honest assessment, or is this just a list of loyalists who've been put out there to give a report?
But I don't know what you mean by post-mortem and a dishonest post-mortem. Are you accusing me of giving a dishonest report to the CWC?
No, I'm asking you whether this is the right way to constitute a committee.
I'm answering you. Mr. Dinesh Gundu Rao was AICC in charge of Goa. He gave a report. I think he gave a very frank report. And then I supplemented that report and I gave my report. Unless you accuse me of giving a dishonest report, I have no other answer to your question. I believe I gave an honest report. If the party wishes to have an external assessment of what happened, the party is welcome to do. But immediately after the election, the only ones who can give a report are the AICC secretary in charge and the observer. Who else can give a report within 2 days?
If the leadership is not the issue, Mr. Chidambaram, then do you think that it is the party that is out of touch with what voters want and what voters want to hear? Is it a communication problem? Is it that the Congress just hasn't been able to reinvent itself in the post-Modi era?
That is a better question. See, the party has several weaknesses. The first weakness is, in many states, the party is withered away. There is no party. When I first went to Goa on the 25th of August, there was no block committee. This block committee existed only on paper. We had to dissolve all the 40 block committees and reconstitute the block committees. I think we were able to effectively put in place a block committee in about 30 blocks. In about 8 or 9 blocks, we had no block committee at all. And in UP, we all know that the party has withered away over the years. And people in charge of UP tried to do 2 things at the same time. First was rebuilding the party and fighting an election. I had cautioned them that both can't be done at the same time. The rebuilding of the party must come first, and then election can come later. But unfortunately, the rebuilding of the party and the election battle took place at the same time. So there are serious deficiencies in the party, which I have pointed out, which others have pointed out, including Mr. Azad and Mr. Sibal. Therefore, we have to address those organizational weaknesses, organizational deficiencies. That's point number one. Point number two is, at various levels of the party, there are no leaders. Now, there are workers, as we found in Goa, there are workers. They are willing to put in long hours of work, but there are no natural leaders. We have to identify leaders with a passion for politics, a passion for fighting elections, and a passion to win elections. We have to find those leaders. There are many other weaknesses, but I've listed two.
But you've also pointed out what Ghulam Nabi Azad and Mr. Kapil Sibal have been saying in terms of these organizational weaknesses. But given the way things stand today, are you concerned that there could actually be a deeper rift in your party with this group of 23? You had Shashi Tharoor joining their meeting yesterday. He also put out a rather cryptic tweet just hours before that. Is there a danger of a much deeper split now?
Well, I hope there will not be a split. I appeal to them not to split. In fact, my appeal to them would be to go back and build the party. Each one can build the party in his constituency, in his district, in his region. It can be done. Everyone must go back and do party work by rebuilding the party units. I attend to it on every visit to Tamil Nadu and to my constituency. I may be successful, may not be successful, but I make a sincere effort. For example, tonight I go to my constituency. Tomorrow I meet all block leaders and the town committee leaders and quicken the process of enrolling new members, which will end on March 31. So we can all contribute by building the party in our respective parliamentary constituencies or respective districts. And then if you have the capacity, you can go beyond your district, beyond your parliamentary constituencies and build the party in other places too.
Would you
I think that is the first thing everybody should do.
But would you say that being 24/7 in politics is another essential requirement? Again, a criticism of the party and the Congress leadership, particularly Rahul Gandhi, is that you all emerge a few months before elections and you think that everything's going to turn around in those 3-4 months of campaigning. Modi and Shah are 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year politicians. Does the Congress need to have that kind of work culture?
I agree with you. We need 24/7 office bearers at every level, but that can only be done by younger people. People in their 30s, 40s and 50s alone can be 24/7. But then
so Rahul Gandhi comes in that age group, no?
Just a moment, Nidhi. I mean, I don't interrupt your question. But if somebody has to be 24/7 at the block level or the district level, the party must provide funds. Nobody can be 24/7 and still provide for his family. Therefore, I think we need to find a way in which the party can fund or support the full-time functionaries of the party at the block and the district level. It's not impossible. There are about 650 districts in this country. We need 650 full-time office bearers in the districts.
Finally, Mr. Chidambaram, just to look ahead to 2024, which the Prime Minister claims is a done deal, do you believe that the Congress's space in any opposition alliance has shrunk as a result of what has happened in these assembly polls? There is going to be now greater jostling for who the opposition's face could be. Mamata Banerjee is front and center of that. Now Arvind Kejriwal fancies his chances. Therefore, would the Congress, you think, have to make more adjustments in any anti-BJP alliance?
Of course, every party has to make adjustments. What you said about the Congress having to make adjustments applies to Ms. Mamata Banerjee and Mr. Arvind Kejriwal. You see, as I see 2024, it may or may not be a done deal in Mr. Modi's point of view, but I think we are ready for the fight. What outcome the fight will yield, I can't say, but we are ready for the fight. But the fight will be state by state. See, our national election is really a state-by-state election. For example, in Tamil Nadu, we will fight with the DMK in the leadership position. Similarly, in Bengal, we would have to fight with the Trinamool Congress in the leadership position. In Punjab and Delhi, the AAP would have to be in the leadership position. If you fight the BJP state by state, it's possible to defeat the BJP in several states.
All right. So interesting that you say that the Congress too would have to make adjustments in order to take on the BJP in 2024. Mr. Chidambaram, thank you for joining us on NDTV today with your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.